And we're live. Hey guys, welcome to SkyTour LiveStream. I don't know if you can hear an echo or not. Let me know in the chat. If you can, we're gonna try and fix it. If you can't, then all is good, and we'll still try to fix it from our end. So let's see what's happening. And here is where we are. Okay, not this side, we're doing here. This is a live event. I'm trying to figure out what's going on here. And I'll make it work. Hey there, Mr. Marley. That's funny. Yeah. All right, let's see here. And Daryl's here. Yeah, I was trying to work on the sound issue, so I haven't been introducing folks. But Amanda is here. And Daryl is here, as you could tell. Yay. That's true. So finally, you have an advantage. Yeah. That's very cool. Yes, if that's the only downside. I hope it is. Years. No, several years. Yeah, several years. Yep, without a doubt. Well, it's interesting. I'm trying to figure this out, and it's just no. That's well, actually, that's a good question. I do not know. Really? Oh, hold on. Okay, Daryl, you should be able to be heard now.
Testing, 1, 2, 3, testing.
I think I hear an echo on Daryl now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And me.
Yeah, I hear an echo from both of you now.
I do also.
Wow.
Can I see your OBS screen?
The OBS screen? Sure. Ooh, look at that infinite stuff. Yeah. See, now I don't hear an echo from me.
Can you scroll down where all those lines are? I see. Yeah.
Well, this is it.
Just those four?
Yeah. So I don't see where you're coming in. Unless, well, actually, have everybody let me know whether. Everybody let me know whether you.
They say they only hear Mark. Okay, so I was off too. Okay, so we should all be heard, but now we're all echoing.
Maybe to each other. I might have an answer. Let me go look at the. Let me go look at the settings here. My settings in Skype. All right.
Okay. So chat understands that they're supposed to have heard us. Vera's saying good morning to Daryl and I, so maybe they can hear us now.
Yes, but I don't think you're echoing to them. It's possible.
Now I hear Mark and Amanda. Okay.
Hello, Izabela. Can you hear me?
Okay, we just did a little test. Izabela, now.
Okay,
or
I think
coffee.
I fixed that.
Okay, Julian says no echo. I'm not hearing an echo. Daryl, can you
I don't
speak?
hear an echo.
Now
good,
that-
Mark?
I think I fixed the echo, and let's hope everybody can. Well, actually, I can just come back now. Go ahead and talk.
Okay, well, now I don't think they had an echo, but we did.
And that's gone
Okay,
for us
Isabella,
now.
here's Daryl now. As long as chat does not have an echo now, we are good on our end now.
Yeah, I fixed it.
So okay, I don't think they have an echo. I think we're all good. Yay!
I think we're good. Daryl, you're good.
Solving problems.
I guess I'm good.
Yeah, you're
I'm
good.
not awake yet.
Well, yes. That's true. The only echo I
So what
hear
was the
is,
problem for next time?
had the output in Skype was going to my microphone,
Okay.
and I don't have anything coming through, but I don't know why I did that. Okay. I think you're, for whatever reason, you're going through my regular speakers right now. Like, if you talk, Amanda?
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
hopefully Daryl is too. They can hear him now anyway, and no one seems to have an echo. It was just us, so just a little feedback on our end. It's okay though.
Yeah.
Isabella says, Daryl, your voice is different? Question mark.
That's
Do I
funny.
sound-
I just read it and then I heard some German guy talking. I'm like, what the hell? Yeah, his voice is different. But
No.
Mark just started playing the show.
Well, I was trying to get the sound to come through.
Daryl's also just waking up. So this is what a bear sounds like when they wake up from hibernation.
That's right. Well, we're waiting for the important part, and that is the launch. Now we've been talking about James Webb for years now, and they've been saying that it's going to launch soon, and they kept
Mark,
putting
I
it
can
off.
barely hear you over this talking.
Okay. Well, the talking's not going out, which is
I'm
odd.
hearing YouTube and
How are you hearing you? Oh, maybe it's because of this. Okay, now you won't.
perfect. Sorry, I was having a lot of trouble hearing you. It's been put off for years and
Yeah, and finally it's going up. The thing is, I'm going to try that again. If I turn on this, I turn on the volume. I turned on the volume to the YouTube. I should see that volume going out. But it's going through Skype. And that's why it's not going out on the stream, but it's going through Skype. So it doesn't matter. I don't need to have it here.
Yeah.
You know, but that's okay. James Webb is on the pad. It was transported to French Guiana, which is the launch site, and that's the ship that it was taken on. You can read the captions if you want to see what's being said. And we are all up early for this event. I have breakfast here, which I'm sorry about the crunching. I'll make that stop as soon as I can. There we go. And
well, he has to eat now because, you know, once we actually hit like go time, I don't want
can't
him
eat.
gasping and choking.
I can't
I hope
eat.
you brought enough for everybody.
Yeah, I know, right? Well, it's a moon pie.
A moon pie, how appropriate.
That's right. That's right. It's a moon pie.
That's what Christmas breakfast is like at Mark's house. It's a moon pie.
It's rare. I have one a year, pretty much, and this is it.
Ah.
What
I also
flavor?
spent-
Pie?
Huh?
What flavor moon pie?
It's just
Vanilla or chocolate?
Chocolate with vanilla center.
Okay.
You should put a little candle in the middle.
That's funny.
Celebration for James Webb.
Yep. So
So,
go
I
ahead.
mean, we have about 18 minutes, and I'm sure we're gonna, you know, probably go quiet a minute or two before that. But tell us the basic story. Like, when did this idea first come to them? How long were they thinking about doing something like this before they actually started building it? Because I mean, it's been postponed for years, took years to make. But when do you know, like, when this idea first kind of got seeded and why? And
They said earlier that the idea for the web they actually came up with it before they launched Hubble.
That's right.
Wow.
Yeah,
What year is that again?
Oh gosh, Hubble's been up there 30 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's been up there for a long time. So it was actually thought of before we had the technology to create it, which is kind of interesting. We couldn't make the Webb back when it was first designed. They were thinking ahead, and actually, they did a nice job. Actually, the design is great. There's just to open the sunshade on this thing is going to be like there's several hundred points of failure, but they're well-tested points that should be error-free.
Yeah, I saw an article. I obviously I didn't read it. It just popped up on the corner of my screen yesterday or the day before. It said the launch is just one thing that has to go right, but there's about 300 other things that'll have to go right. And I'm thinking, like, they could say numerous or they could say, insurmountable, but like, I'm sure it's not 300 on the dot, but like, where did they get that number? Is it like hundreds and hundreds of things that could literally go wrong, or just like a handful of main things that could ground it?
Think about this. To open the sunshade, there's many different fasteners that have to release to allow that sunshade to open. And it's a spring thing, so as soon as the fasteners release, some of those things will release and it will open up some more. As they open up more of the fasteners, it'll open all the way. It's been tested.
How long is this process?
What's that? How long does it take?
Yeah.
I'm not
Like from the first fastener to open to the last, like, this be done all like in the few hours, over a few days? How long?
The sunshade should open in just a short time, I believe. I don't know the exact time, but I think we're talking maybe about an hour or two to open the sunshade.
Does it have to be at a certain distance?
I think it's going to take several days to do everything, and they're going to do it in stages. Daryl, what do you know about it?
They had an engineer on interviewing earlier, and there are 108 actuators that all have to release at the right time to open the sunshade, like you said, the little spring-loaded things. There are 178 of those total on the Webb that all have to work. And for what I've seen in the past, I thought it was going to take a while. I forget how long to deploy the Sunshield. I mean, it's you may be talking days. I forget. I mentioned yesterday, Scott Manley did a really great video he released yesterday or day before about the whys and wherefores of the Webb, and he really covered all this stuff. There are many failure points along the way, and the Webb has to pass each one of these. Has to succeed at every one of them for everything to work. I don't know.
See, because that's. Go ahead, sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I've talked before. I'm not filled with confidence. I hope it works, but Webb, it is so complex an instrument that one failure point along the way, and I mean, they could be toast.
Well, the other thing is that I won't buy the toast theory so much, as I think that maybe there is a possibility that they will definitely be able to make some use of it should there be some kind of failure. I'm thinking the failure that might happen would be in the sunshade, if there is any. But they've actually, if you saw the testing, they actually had the entire unit on a shaking table, and they just were shaking this thing, the whole Webb all together, assembled, ready for launch. They had it shaking, and then they tested it again, and everything opened fine. But they're testing it in one Earth gravity, right? They're not testing it in a vacuum. They're not testing it in, although they did test it in a vacuum. They have a vacuum chamber they put it in and tested the entire assembly. But the Sunshade's the size of a regular tennis court. It's over 70 feet long. And in the photos you see, it doesn't look that big because the building is so large. You're not used to that. But I've been in these high bays where they build these satellites and systems, and they're massive, massive buildings. You suddenly feel very tiny when you look up and see the roof is 100 feet over your head. It's crazy. Suddenly you feel like a little tiny ant.
Sorry, I'm reading your screen. It looked like something is going to be deployed minutes after launch. Did I read that right?
Well, the fairings are going to come away.
Oh. They said something about a solar array, that it was going to be on UL power until minutes after the launch. I don't know. See, it's only like, I'm only saying like 3 or 4 words, and then it pauses, and then I get like 2 more words, and it's to the end of the sentence, so it's a little broken, but it sounded like it was going to be on power, on UL power. I am noticing some spelling errors in here, extra letters here and there, and so I don't know if that's what, I don't know what UL is.
Well, see,
and then something about solar array.
I could get the dialogue and have it, you could hear it, but
well, no, I see the closed captioning on the screen. That's what I'm reading.
Okay, all right. Let me try
so, because I'm just wondering, like, you know how, like, usually when we're seeing a launch, we see, like, everything being deployed and, like, sloughing off and everything like that, and we kind of follow the trajectory for a while. Like, that's what I'm wondering. What all are we going to see? I mean, as long as it doesn't, like, crash back down to Earth or, like, explode or something crazy like that, like, when, like, is it going to be, like, a month or so before they can, like, deem this 100% successful? Like,
it's going to take, I think they're saying 29 days just to get to the Lagrange point. It's going to be 6 months before they get images from the telescope.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I knew it was going to be a while for that. Will it not start taking pictures immediately on its little path to the L1 point or the L?
I don't think it's going to be able to be taking any pictures. I'm not aware of any onboard cameras, like engineering cameras. There might be some on the Ariane rocket launch vehicle.
Yeah. Report, we expect all systems to remain green. We'll be going down to the fishbowl to confirm that just a moment or 2 from now. It's a 27-minute ride to orbit from liftoff until the time that the Webb Observatory is separated from the upper stage of the Ariane 5 rocket. Several minutes later, the commands will be given to unfurl its solar array, followed by the confirmation from the telescope controllers in Baltimore that we are power positive, meaning that electrical current is flowing through that solar array. With us today, inside the so-called fishbowl, seated with mission controllers on the floor of the control room, is Raphael Chevrier of Arianespace. Raphael, how's everything looking? What's being discussed down there?
Hi, Rob. Well, so far, so good. We just received the last weather forecast. It's all green for the H0 that is forecast right now. What we checked was altitude winds, wind in the vicinity of the launch pad, and risk of lightning. So right now,
it's a relief because I apologize for all these people that already know all this stuff and
right now everybody
are just rolling their eyes. I'm trying to ask like the most basic questions, you know, and I appreciate Vera saying that she likes my questions at least, and I'm sure this is all like very basic stuff, but you know, I'm just kind of seeing. Thank you. Oh, well, I just want to know the very basics, like.
Thanks, Raphael. We'll be back with you and Luce here shortly.
Something goes wrong with the solar array.
Baltimore that James Webb
it's
is
still
on
going to be
internal
able to do
power.
Stuff, right? Like,
amidst all of this
the
activity, we
mission
cannot forget
like
that it is Christmas Day.
Scratched,
53
right?
years ago, the astronauts of Apollo 8 completed their 10th and final orbit of the moon after reading from the book of Genesis on Christmas Eve to billions of people watching with rapt attention back on our planet.
The astronauts then headed for home, following their spacecraft's trans-Earth injection burn. Today, more than a half-century later, we're just minutes away from another genesis, the genesis of new era of discovery. The launch of the James Webb Space Telescope is at hand. We're just 38 seconds away from entering the critical synchronized sequence. You're going to be hearing all the critical calls from the DDO, the Range Operations Manager, who is Jean-Luc Voyer, here in the launch in the Mission Control Center. There he is. He will be calling the start of synchronized sequence, all of the critical countdown milestones, and we will be listening very intently for his calls. Let's stand by.
But we've never actually gone to Lagrange point 2 before, and this will be a first for us. So it's kind of interesting. We do have fuel on board to keep the James Webb on station, so to speak. Keep in mind that as James Webb orbits the sun from 1 million miles away, we're going to find ourselves in a situation where the James Webb is orbiting the sun, and it's also at a point where, as it's orbiting, all the other gravitational forces on it will balance such that the James Webb can remain in that, what I call and others call a parking spot in space. And that's what this is all about. So that parking spot in space requires fuel to maintain it. It sort of travels in a little ellipse when it's in that location. So it's sort of orbiting within all the gravitational tugs of everything else tugging on it as it's orbiting the sun. It's a very complex relationship, but it does need fuel. And when that fuel runs out, then James Webb is no more. We can't control it anymore. However, that being said, they're already developing ways to automatically refuel systems, even though they're not designed to be refueled with automation. And they designed some refueling systems to do this. And that's what they're doing. That's what they're working on, possibly for this satellite right here.
Wow.
So.
I see smoke.
Right.
Okay.
All right.
We have about 5 minutes, so if anyone has to grab a drink or run to the bathroom, I personally would advise not eating for the next few minutes. Not for like nausea or anything, but just in case. I always think like if you physically gasp and like some popcorn goes down your throat or whatever you might be eating at whatever time it is in your time zone. Well, this is exciting. You don't think, well, I bet those NASA people, their stomachs are probably so riddled with ulcers and in a pretzel, you know, like
they're in a,
they'll eat in a few days when everything goes well.
They're in a pretzel. There's no doubt about it. I'm sure they're pretzels. You know,
I'm nervous, and I have no investment in this. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I want to see it succeed, but like, it's not like I put in the money and time and research.
The James Webb is going to find other exoplanets, number one. Number two, it's going to be able to look at the atmospheres, if any, of these exoplanets, and be able to do what we call characterize them, find out what they're made of, find out if there's anything that can cause or allow life to arise. So I think it's kind of cool. I do want to welcome the folks here that are here in the chat. Thank you guys for coming in. I see we have Genghis is here, Headband Harvest, Izabela, Terra, Vera Lucia, from Brazil. Welcome. And I saw a few other people here that left a message. But,
do you see Terra's in here?
I just said Terra. Yeah, I said, hey, Terra.
Okay.
Yeah, and I saw Zadarak was here earlier, and Daisy.
Hopefully I've been keeping up with hello and that I didn't miss anyone. If I did, I do apologize. Happy Christmas to everybody.
And Julia.
I'm not sure what time it is in Brazil and where Izabela is in.
Sofia.
I can't remember.
Sofia, Bulgaria. She's 7
in Bulgaria,
ahead.
Yeah.
7 hours
okay,
ahead.
So it's still Christmas. Okay, and I have no idea what time it is in Brazil, but
well, they're south
it's
of
still
us. They
Christmas.
might actually be, depending where they are, they could be 1 hour ahead or 1 hour behind, depending on where she is. Maybe. So. Oh gosh.
So it might not be Christmas for her yet, or she's still.
Oh no, it is. I'm now getting nervous. It's 2.5 minutes. Yeah.
I don't like how gray that sky is. I mean,
No,
even if the launch is
window-
successful, are we going to see it after a few feet? It's so gray.
It's going to jump into the clouds. Let's go to mission control.
Carefully watching the telemetry, looking
Daryl
intently
stepped
at
away,
the final
and
couple
yes,
of
he got
minutes
up
of the
very,
countdown.
very early to
Lives
come
have been
join us.
spent
I mean, it's
in the
8 for me.
preparation
It's what
of the James Webb Space Telescope that is
it's
about
5
to
for him.
fly.
5, 6, 7, 8, yeah. Yeah, about 20 after 5 for him. So
from Iron Space.
you know,
2 hours away from me.
yeah. Well, I
It's
mean,
5:18.
if
And
you
that
want
is
to know
the
how
DDO, the
dedicated
Range
these
Operations
astronomers
Manager,
are,
Jean-Luc
here you
Voyer,
go.
as we have hit the
The
2-minute
proof is
mark
right
in
here.
the countdown.
Yeah.
Christmas morning, you know, they drag themselves out of bed.
Yeah, and the other
I'm
thing
probably
too.
going back to bed afterwards too.
I don't blame you.
Oh, where's
Yeah.
everybody going?
I might too. I got about a 2-hour nap before this. This whole
2-minute
week,
hold.
this whole week or two, my sleep has been so screwed up. Thursday, before I went to bed, I was thinking, I wish I had one more day to get the running around done before Christmas. And then I fell asleep, I'm not kidding you, for 18 hours. I died. I absolutely died. And I went to bed Thursday morning, I woke up Friday morning. And yeah, and I've been up ever since Friday morning, and I took a nap like 2 hours ago.
Wow.
So if I make less sense than usual, this is why. I'm more used to going to bed at this time than waking up and having to make sense on air. Yeah, this isn't a good time. This is.
As you heard earlier,
We're actually a minute away.
45 seconds.
For 7 seconds, and the command will be issued to ignite the solid rocket boosters.
Okay, well, so what? Do we put on the volume and let NASA take over?
Yeah, we're letting them take over.
Okay, fingers crossed. Deep breath, everybody. Happy Christmas.
T-minus 30 seconds.
I hope they don't hit Santa on the way
30
home.
seconds. I'm going to remove the closed captions because we're going to hear it.
Standing by for terminal count.
I did go into hibernation. Oh, and it felt good. Vera's already in bed. Hey! Mark's the one that had to get up and actually put this all together. I'm still in my pajamas.
It's launching.
I don't hear anything.
And we have engine start.
Oh, it is going out on the.
And liftoff.
There it goes.
Decollage, liftoff from a tropical rainforest to the edge of time itself. James Webb begins a voyage back to the birth of the universe. Punching a hole through the clouds, 20 seconds into the flight. Good pitch program reported.
That's what I mean.
Vehicle performance is nominal.
Yeah, zoom out, man.
The Ariane 5 rocket
continues
this is
worth getting up for.
To fly uphill in nominal fashion.
Well,
there's no big explosion. That's good.
The rumble of the powerful Ariane 5 now being felt here in the control center.
Yeah,
3D animation.
Spoiled by watching.
We can hear the
watching
noise and feel the vibrations
SpaceX
here.
launches.
You're right, Rob.
They have cameras
Impressive.
everywhere.
13 kilometers in altitude, 7 kilometers downrange. Traveling about 0.6 kilometers per second.
Well, that's why I was thinking. We would see it in its
The trajectory reported to be nominal by Jean-Luc Voyer, the range operations manager. You can see at the bottom of your screen, the yellow line is the trajectory plot, perfectly overlaid over the green line, which was the pre-launch trajectory.
Yeah, I got it up on the speakers too for you.
1 minute, 41 seconds into the flight, about 40 seconds away from shutdown of the solid rocket boosters.
Well, it's going out over the stream.
Coming up on the 2-minute mark into the flight.
How's that? A little better?
when it detects the threshold on acceleration, not the deceleration, but less acceleration for
Tous les paramètres à bord sont normaux.
Everything is okay, everything is normal.
2 minutes, 15 seconds into the flight.
That's good.
When the computer detects this threshold, it will separate.
Séparation des EAP.
Done.
We have confirmation of solid rocket booster separation from Jean-Luc Voyer. This coming at an altitude of 44 miles. The Ariane 5 and James Webb traveling almost 5,000 miles an hour. We have about 1 minute, 5 seconds to go before fairing jettison. That'll be the next critical milestone.
They might have a camera for that. Let's see.
The fairing is there to avoid the satellite being exposed to high temperatures and also high airflows. And as soon as the launcher leaves the atmosphere, as is now the case, the satellite does not need anymore to be protected, and Webb does not need anymore to be protected. So each kilogram being very important for the performance of the launch, we are going to eject this no more useful fairing.
Izabela
and let's go down to the floor in the Jupiter Control Center to Raphael Chevrier of Ariane Space. Raphael, so far so good.
Animation of where it should
Hi,
be.
Rob. So far so good. Everything is nominal, as we say, when attitude and trajectory of the Ariane 5 is going perfectly well. As you can see also on the yellow line on the screen, we had the confirmation of the separation of the two solid boosters and now of the fairing, meaning that we have crossed the
because I would assume it was just a normal camera on the ground.
And the DDO just said that all parameters are going perfectly smoothly. So let's continue the mission.
And Raphael, this is a view from the upper stage camera called the Vicky Cam, looking back at the James Webb Space Telescope. This is on about a 20-second delay or so because of the way the imagery is processed here in the control room. There's your telescope ready to unfurl its wings, basically, and begin its journey to the Lagrange point, the L2 point, about 1 million miles away from Earth.
Well, Daryl, what do you think? It's in orbit.
It's not in orbit yet.
Yeah, it's getting there. It's above the Kármán.
It's okay. I think...
It's in space.
I think SpaceX has changed the game for everybody, and it's going to be hard for others to keep up with them. Just, you know, with the presentation of it, they have cameras everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
On the rocket body, on the satellite itself, and, you know, the stages and the landing and all that. They've just kind of upped the game.
They have.
Everybody else has to... try to catch up with it.
Yeah. And to those asking, yes, this is just computer-generated animation based on trajectory and so forth, planned, you know, years in advance. These trajectories you can see down below, right here in this green curve. Okay, this is the curve, the trajectory. It takes off straight up, then starts to lean over and head more horizontal to increase speed to reach orbital velocity. And that camera you saw was the Vicky Cam, the camera looking down at the James Webb from up at the end here of the vehicle, so you could actually see what was going on with the James Webb Telescope as a payload. Let's bring up the volume again.
Natal station in Brazil, Ascension as you can see on the map, in the middle of the ocean, and the two last stations in Africa. Libreville and Malindi, one on the east coast, the other one on the west coast. And the one on the west coast, Malindi, you can see that the satellite will be, the telescope will be separated more or less over this Malindi station. And this Malindi station will also acquire the telemetry data from the telescope. You can see both are green, Galileo and
no idea where these places are. My geography
They are expected to receive the data, and it was confirmed.
Well, you're not expected to.
Launch operations manager.
Acquisition de télémesure par la station du Natal au Brésil.
And just confirming now that telemetry is being processed through the Brazilian tracking station. The telescope is also processing telemetry through the tracking and data relay satellite system. As it moves further and further out into deep space, all of the telescope's telemetry and its imagery ultimately will be processed through the Deep Space Network in Goldstone, California. We passed the 7-minute mark into the flight. A perfect ride so far on the Ariane 5. We have about 1.5 minutes to go in the first stage performance. Once the main stage engine is commanded to cut off, it will be jettisoned, and just a few seconds after that, the upper stage engine will ignite, and it will be the workhorse for a 16-minute burn that will put James Webb into its preliminary orbit.
This is the upper stage here, but right here, behind here, there's a nozzle right here, and it's going to push and propel this into the outer orbit.
Controllers at the Space Telescope Science Institute will be sending commands to prepare James Webb for the initial series of commissioning activities that will lead to the deployment of its solar array and the initiation of generation of electrical power for the telescope. About 30 seconds away from main engine cutoff.
MECO, M-E-C-O, main engine cutoff.
Virus's natal means Christmas.
Nominal trajectory continues to be the watchword for the day from the Range Operations Manager, Jean-Luc Voyer, as we stand by for main engine shutdown and separation.
I thought it was Jean-Luc Picard.
Excellent.
No, Virus's natal means Christmas. That's where it was going over.
Yeah, Brazil.
Extinction de l'EPC.
That's very
there's
cool.
The separation, and there's that engine.
We got a lot happening today.
And we have main stage shutdown and separation confirmed here in the Mission Control Center, and the ignition of that upper stage.
Yay.
And Raphael Chevrier down in the fishbowl. So far, so good.
Yes, Rob, we have the confirmation of the separation of the main stage and the ignition of the upper stage. The trajectory is perfectly nominal. This is a very important moment for us because it's always a challenge to switch on a cryogenic engine in space condition, and we are now at 220 kilometers of altitude. Speed is a bit more than 7 kilometers per second. As we enter now the second stage of the second phase of the flight, the upper stage is going to power for about 16 minutes to place Webb on its transfer orbit, and right now everything is again nominal, as the DDO just said.
That's
good. It's amazing they could make something so boring. Cameras sure would have helped. Again, SpaceX is beating them like a Reddit mule.
Okay, yeah. We heard. SpaceX can't be beat, I know. But this is French Guiana. This is the Ariane launch system. There's no way that they can keep up with Elon billions.
I was going to say, so is this like truly a global program? Like all these different countries and stuff are all helping track everything? And
yes. Yeah, there's tracking stations worldwide. The Deep Space Network consists not of just the Goldstone antenna itself, but many others around the world. So that the deep space probes are always within range of somebody as the Earth rotates.
As far as the program goes, man, it's a cooperative effort between NASA and the European Space Agency.
Yeah, that's the ESA. And
well, what about Brazil though? Is it Brazil was tracking it?
Well,
yeah, they're part of the tracking array.
Yeah,
they're not part of Europe though.
No, it doesn't matter. At the European Space Agency, they have tentacles all over the world, and there's partners all over the world. And Brazil is a very lucrative location to have a tracking array.
Well, no, it's just when I hear NASA, I think American. You know, and there might be like parts from other countries and stuff, but something this big, so long in the making, that all these places are helping, like, it's just nice to think it's more global than just like one country's accomplishment. It's like kind of all of mankind, you know, or humanity, whatever. Is it?
Politics is what it is.
Yeah.
Oh, I just think it's a nice kind of vibe to put out there. A nice way of looking at it.
Yeah. You're welcome, Zadarak.
Thank you guys for waking up to be here. I mean, I know there's going to be a gazillion places streaming this, but you chose to be with us, and we appreciate it.
Yeah, let's listen.
So far, it's a happy Christmas, I think.
Once it is locked in place, we'll get the call that electricity is flowing through the array. That call will come from the Mission Operations Manager, Carl Starr, who's at the Space Telescope Science Institute at Johns Hopkins in Baltimore. Seated right behind him in that control room is Alicia Starr, a pair of stars helping to guide James Webb on its discovery of the stars. Alicia Starr is the lead engineer for launch and ascent events. Once the solar array is deployed...
Ascension Island is another tracking station. That's why you see Ascension.
I was about to ask, does that mean, like, it's going to start going up now? Is it going to start ascending higher in elevation?
That's just the next tracking station.
To protect instrument optics on Webb.
I'll settle for that, then.
Ice condensation as they cool down. The actuator drive unit will be powered on. This particular mechanism helps with heater control of the fine steering mirror, preventing water ice condensation, later to be used to position each of the mirror's segments. All 6 reaction wheels and the wheel drive electronics will be powered on for Webb, and that will be the precursor to the attitude control system using those reaction wheels to maintain the proper orientation with the sun, as opposed to using onboard thrusters. Of course, fuel in those thrusters, very valuable. It's a limited commodity for the lifetime of James Webb's observations of the universe.
This is hardly a SpaceX launch, because when they launch, you hear cheering and everything. And these guys, these stuffed shirts in the back, are just sitting there quietly, probably told not to yell out or say anything, you know.
Well, they have a million more checkpoints to succeed first. Again, it's not over by a long shot. Nothing to celebrate yet, I don't think.
Same with the SpaceX launch, but they just end up, you know, cheering every single moment. Like the launch clears the tower, yay. Okay, the first stage separates, yay. Well, the second stage could blow up, but, you know, yay for the first 2. Excuse me. All right, let's bring it up.
Of its altitude will allow the launcher to benefit, and the upper stage to benefit of the gravity effect, and to increase its velocity until it reaches a thermal threshold. It's about to reach it, or even already reached it now, and it will go up. And now it will go up and up to the separation of the Webb Telescope. It will separate the Webb Telescope on a highly elliptic orbit, but still around the Earth. The telescope will be inserted on an orbit around the Earth, with an apogee, a very high apogee, above 1 million kilometers.
Trajectory nominal, as reported by Jean-Luc Voyer. You see him in that view, 185 kilometers in altitude. Some 4,500 kilometers downrange from the launch site here in Kourou.
No one's breathing. Kind of makes it hard to cheer when your lungs have seized up.
Right on the
trajectory. That's true.
Looking great. We are about
if someone opens their mouth and start cheering, they might start vomiting. Oh, thumbs up.
Okay, we're gonna be in a coast phase, and then that engine's gonna separate, and that's it. The Webb's on its way.
I think I heard they said something was going to happen 27 minutes after the launch, and we're about 16 minutes in. So
yeah.
The second stage is going to burn for 16 minutes, then it's going to shut down. They're going to be in a coast phase for a while, I guess.
Yeah.
And I assume that means the second stage is going to have to relight for final insertion.
Yeah, and then the second stage will separate, and off it'll go.
So now, how long will they stream for? Because it sounds like these checkpoints are going to occur over the next few days, but
We're about 8
They're not
minutes
just going to
away.
let this stream for days and days, right?
Correct.
The stage has performed as
So do they have a certain point where they're going to feel comfortable enough to say it's a success and we're closing down now and we'll keep you guys posted? Like, do we just check nasa.org like every couple hours for the next few days, or like what happens after this stream ends? Because it's not over, obviously.
No, the web is going to continue to go. I think we're going to cover this until the second stage shuts down and the web is on its way. So that'll be after the coast phase, unless they have to orbit the Earth once. I'm not sure. It is Christmas morning here, and so far I've gotten everything I want for Christmas, and that is the James Webb is now on its way to Lagrange point 2. Talk about the gifts it's going to give us over the next several years.
Yeah.
You know, the speed at which James Webb is going.
Look, like that
towards its
woman is still
preliminary-
wringing her hands.
Well,
There is
that's
still a
okay.
lot of tension to go.
Yeah. Let's hear what's being said.
An atmosphere and environment around the telescope for its ultimate separation from the upper stage of the Ariane 5 rocket, which is about 6.5 minutes from now.
Yeah. This is all very interesting. This is
18.5 minutes into the flight. It's very quiet now here in the control center here in Kourou.
See, I wish I had their checklist. Like, what is this?
Oh, you can get that online if you want.
I'm just wondering, what's this next tense moment they're waiting for? Is that the 16-minute burn?
This secondary image, secondary engine will be shutting down.
Mm-hmm.
And they have that Vera Lucia. Holy Xanax, that's funny. Hi, PG.
Continues to burn nominally and sheds fuel. The acceleration
Uphill for the James Webb Space Telescope continues to increase as we approach the 20-minute mark into the flight. Again,
More
upper stage
coffee.
cutoff is scheduled at the 24-minute, 51-second mark into the flight, about 5.5 minutes from now.
Okay. So let's wait and see what happens
After
there.
the cutoff of this main engine, as you said, Rob, we will have a short ballistic phase, a short coasting phase that will, when the upper stage will rely fully on its what we call the attitude and roll control system, and it will adjust its attitude so that during this small ballistic phase, all the requirements from the telescope are fully met, and that at the separation, when there will be the separation, the conditions will be very smooth and as requested for the telescope.
Le pilotage est
beginning
calme,
of
la
life.
propulsion est nominale.
Today's countdown was as flawless as you can imagine. The weather was perfect all the way through the early morning hours, through the fueling process of the vehicle. The weather's been a bit dicey here in Kourou over the past few days, but everything fell together on this Christmas day to send a new present to the world's astronomer. 20 minutes, 40 seconds into the flight.
Trajectoire est normale, tous les paramètres à bord sont normaux.
All
Everything is
parameters nominal, as reported by Jean-Luc Voyer, the range operations manager.
I'm Jean-Luc Picard. Welcome to space. A quiet moment.
I wish you could have the closed captioning up when
No, I could
you
do
mute
that.
it.
It's not muted.
Oh.
I'm not saying anything. It's actually quiet. Excuse me. Yeah. They're waiting for this coast phase to start when that secondary engine goes down.
Tracking station
Oh, I
on
wish I
the
had one
western
sometimes.
coast of
Trajectoire est
Africa.
normale.
Pretty good.
Flight control is
My bad.
nominal. The trajectory is fully normal, fully as expected, as you can see on the plot with the yellow plot over the green one. That is the expected one.
22 minutes into the flight. Less than 3 minutes of powered flight remaining.
I'd love to know who's closed captioning this. They said speaking French language. No, it was just a French accent. She was actually speaking English. It's just an accent.
Everything nominal reported by the range operations manager. As we've mentioned before, this is a long ride uphill for the James Webb Space Telescope to put it at the proper position in the sky so that it can escape from the Earth, basically head beyond the moon towards its final orbit for its commissioning activities that will be the dominant feature of all of the operations from the Space Telescope Science Institute over the course of the next several weeks.
Can you imagine if it just got sent in the wrong direction? It just has to be off a 50th of a degree, and it will go completely into the wrong place. So talk about accuracy.
And what, just head out to space forever?
Yeah, it would not get to L2 if that was the case. L2 is pretty wide, so it's a somewhat wide landing target, so to speak. But
explain the Lagrange points for people, because I'm sure everyone that's waking up this early to follow this launch knows what a Lagrange point is, but just so they understand why it's not just floating off into space forever.
There are 5 Lagrange points, if I remember correctly. There are points of balance between the Earth and the Sun, to put it simply, that gravitational effects and what's the other one? Centrifugal effects? They sort of balance out.
Yes, so remember, everything is orbiting the Sun, ultimately. So as it's orbiting the Sun, it has this orbital velocity. And the James Webb is no different. It's orbiting the Sun, but as it does so, it's also going to be at a spot where all the gravitational effects, as you were alluding to, Daryl, will sum to zero, effectively, for its location. They don't reach zero. They actually are still positive amounts. However, this will be enough so that once it gets to that particular spot in space, only small corrections will be needed to keep it in an orbit around the Sun and at that location. It's going to be deploying its sunshade, and when it deploys the sunshade, that sunshade is going to be facing the Moon, the Earth, and the Sun, because it's going to, the secondary engine has cut off. We are at SECO, secondary engine cutoff. So that's pretty cool.
So they're not going into orbit around the Earth. They're launching directly to the L2 point.
Well, I think they've reached escape velocity from the Earth.
Yes.
They have it says 9,000. Okay, the comma is a point in the metric system. 9.83 kilometers per second. So they're over 7 kilometers per second, which they were before. So that's probably at the escape velocity. So they're not going to go in orbit. Actually, it's going to be if anything, it'd be a highly elliptical orbit. But this is, they're coasting, and then they're going to turn it on again to break that orbit and extend the ellipse to a location to the L2 point. So that's pretty cool.
I don't know why, but I'm getting a little mad that you're doing math so early in the morning on a Christmas morning. Oh my God. These numbers are just stupendous, and you're just like, I'll just figure out the velocity quickly in my head. I mean...
Well, no, I mean, I wasn't figuring it out in my head, actually. I was actually just going from what I know it has to be to get out of there and get...
See, it's going to separate from the second stage here shortly.
Yeah, it should, but I think...
so it should be at orbital velocity now. Or escape velocity.
I heard something about 27 minutes after launch, and we're just about there, about 20 seconds out, so I want to see what happens here.
If you look at the green thing Okay, the green line. Okay, it's, if you notice, let's see, what's that vertical scale on the left? Is that the speed or the altitude? I think that's
God.
No, that's not the altitude. It must be altitude, though.
Oh, hold on. Yeah, I think it's altitude
there
on the
goes.
side and... Oh.
Okay, hold on. No one's saying a word there.
Webb Space Telescope. Go Webb!
Yay!
Oh,
Now
people are
we're
cheering
clapping.
for the first time.
There are no large rocket engines on the Webb itself. I mean, they've achieved escape velocity already.
Yeah, no, it's on its way. It's coasting there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to coast all the way to the L2.
Yep.
Logical discovery.
There it
Amanda,
it was.
Let me turn it down, Daryl, so you can talk. Go ahead.
For what you asked earlier about the Lagrange points, there are a number of them. L1, if I remember correctly, is directly between the Earth and the Sun. L2 is directly behind the Earth, about 1 million miles out, a little less than 1 million miles.
Mm-hmm.
They chose L2 on purpose. So it's going to be farther out than the Earth. It's basically going to be so Earth's daylight side is facing away from the telescope, and it'll also be farther out than the Moon. So the Webb will be facing away from Earth, Sun, and Moon at all times.
Yeah,
okay,
stupid
stupid question time.
All of that.
There's going to be a barrage of stupid questions from me now.
No, not all.
Okay, well, first off, I did hear them just say that it was going to be passing the Moon to get to the L2 point.
Yeah.
It takes a few days for us to get to the Moon, right?
Yes.
Apollo took about 3 days.
3, yeah, I was going to say about 3.5, 4 days. I thought I heard, but again, I hear bits and pieces. I get things confused, so that's why I just want to double check everything here. So now, is that going to be the same case for the James Webb, or is it going like substantially faster?
I don't think it's going substantially faster.
So it'll still take about 3 days to get to the Moon, and then a few more to pass it to get to the L2. It's not going to take 29 days to get to L2, is it?
Look.
What?
It's deploying a solar array already.
Wow.
Now has its array out as we stand by for confirmation that it is power positive.
They better be clapping for that.
Hey, Rob.
Okay, this is what I wanted to see. I was wondering if we were going to see this.
J'entends pas ce qu'il me dit, Rob. Il m'a appelé ou pas?
Waiting to see if they got power.
Il m'a appelé ou pas, Rob?
Non, il t'a pas appelé.
And there it is. There's your critical call. James Webb not only has legs, but it has power as it begins its journey and the commissioning activities to follow. And with that, let's go down to the floor in the fishbowl and Raphael Chevrier of Arianespace.
This is it. We have witnessed and the confirmation that Ariane 5 have safely delivered Webb into space. The upper stage is now being placed on a safe escape orbit around the Sun, but honestly, I've got to tell you that these images are absolutely incredible, and well, it may be the end of the mission for Arianespace, but it's only the beginning of the journey for Webb. It's now on its way to the Lagrange point. Congratulations to all the team involved in the flight. Really, there is no words to describe the immersion that is happening right now in the fishbowl. So all I can say is good luck, Webb, and bring us incredible data from the deep universe.
At that point, our sequence will continue.
Well, Raphael, congratulations on a perfect ride to orbit
Now,
from the
Isabella
Ariane
saying
5
this is
out
going
of
to be the
Korea.
last
Let me
view
turn
of the
it down so
telescope.
let me turn it down so I can hear you. What'd you say?
Isabella's saying, ironically, this will be the last view of the telescope.
Yeah, because there's
Is
no
that true?
cameras. There's no cameras in the telescope, apparently.
Well,
you know what?
What was that last image when the solar array went up? What was that from? Like the ISS or something? It's not that high yet, is it?
That was from the second stage booster that was attached to it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Those are like one of the Vicky cameras, what they call them. I don't remember which. I don't know which one it was. Probably it could have been the Vicky 2. You know, everybody's very happy. I can tell you. This is wonderful.
Well,
Quite a Christmas present for the
yeah, it is quite a Christmas present. This is really good. You know,
see, I knew there was something big they had to be waiting on, and I had a feeling that was it. So it's going to be fully deployed. Like, is it fully deployed now, or
yes,
are there still a few more little pieces that have to get into place? So,
well, there's lots more pieces in general, but at least the unit has power. And that's the important thing. You know, you know, as Daryl says, you know, a lot has to happen. You know, a lot has to happen. Well, this is good. Well, we watched the launch. We saw it deploy. We saw the solar panel extend. So now the vehicle has power. And so those of you who joined us, I think that was pretty good. But
well, I think everyone's
I
pretty.
can breathe again.
Now, well, hold on, because I had another question.
No, go ahead.
When Daryl was explaining where the L2 point is, he said it's 1 million miles kind of behind the sun to Earth.
It's actually it's a million miles from the Earth away from the sun.
Yeah, it's if you consider the sun and where the Earth is orbiting it, it's farther out, directly behind Earth from the sun's point of view. And the Webb will be facing away at all times. That Sunshield, the big foil-looking thing, it's going to be spread out, and Earth, Sun, and Moon are going to be on one side of that, and the actual telescope is always going to be on the other side of it, on the far side of the Sunshield.
That's right.
Facing out into the darkness of space.
That's right.
Okay. What all have we put to the L2 point so far? Anything?
Nothing.
Nothing.
This is the first time.
Okay, so
there it is. There it is, right there in the diagram.
Yeah,
No,
I see that. Thank you.
You're
okay,
welcome.
so has anything looked out past Earth, like instead of looking back at Earth and the Moon and the Sun? So.
Well, Hubble Space Telescope.
Okay, so this isn't like totally uncharted territory then.
No, well, that's the first time they've gone to the L2 point.
It's the first time.
But yeah, we've been looking out into space for decades now.
And we've been to Pluto now with a probe, the New Horizons probe, zoomed by Pluto. And
yeah, but that was just kind of taking one path.
Well, we've got landers on Mars, much farther away than L2. So L2 is 1 million miles from the Earth, but
Yeah, and I guess the rover can look in any direction it wants. It's not stuck facing the Earth or the Sun. It can turn away.
No. Well, the rover on Mars can go anywhere. It looks at the ground. It looks at the sky. It photographs the sun, and so forth. And we've been to Jupiter and Saturn with the Voyager probes and Cassini. It's like we've been to the outer solar system. This point here, L2, every one of these spots you see here, L1 through 5, as we see here, these are orbits, right? So when you look at these things, you know that there's you're going to have an orbit here. And that means that obviously the satellite is going around the sun. But from this position, as it goes around the sun, the force of gravity from the Earth, the Moon, the Sun, and the outer planets is kind of alleviated, not gone, but it's close to zero net effect on this particular spot. And the same thing happens at L4, L1, 5, and 3. Okay, the net effect is close to zero from all the gravities of all the other bodies. So, but you still need some fuel, because as planets orbit the sun, it changes the tugging influence on something at L2. So you need a little fuel to kind of pull it back into L2.
I just link in chat for the Scott Manley video about the Webb he released a day or two ago. He goes into all this and explains whys and wherefores of it, and he does a very good job of it. If you want to watch that, you'll figure a lot out. It is what it is. I mean, the Webb is going to be sitting out there at the L2 point. It's actually going to describe, as Mark said earlier, sort of an ellipse around the L2 point, up and down above the plane of the Earth, orbiting the sun. But it's going to hover in that general area, and the Sunshield is going to be splitting toward the Earth side. It's going to be shielding the telescope, which is going to be on the far side of the Sunshield, and the Webb is going to be facing away from Earth, the Sun, and the Moon at all times.
One thing to keep in mind is, and this is a little bit of orbital mechanics, right? No math, Amanda, so don't worry. But if you look at L1 versus L2 alone, okay, the orbital velocity of the Earth is such that it can stay in a circular orbit around the Sun at this particular distance. Objects closer to the Sun have to orbit faster. So if you technically had an object, say here, and it was orbiting the Sun, it would be going by faster, would pass by the Earth, more than once by the time it takes Earth to go around, right? Or close.
Mercury and Venus would be in there between the Sun and Earth. And by the way, I was going to point it out because it's kind of hard to see, and it looks like more brown and blue with a big white blotch. It took me a second to realize. For those that can see the screen, obviously the Sun is in the middle. And then there's a big blue circle, and there's a little red circle. In the middle of that red circle on the blue line, that's supposed to be Earth. And there's actually a tiny little ball, a gray little ball, to the upper right on the red circle, and that is our moon. See that our moon is going around the red circle, orbiting Earth, tidally locked, and Earth is going around that blue circle. So now, between the Sun and the blue circle, Mercury and Venus are going to be in there somewhere, and they go faster than Earth, right?
This is certainly not. This is certainly not the scale. That's right. So L1 objects, okay, technically an object closer to the Sun should orbit faster, just like Venus does and Mercury does. But because this is an area where the gravitational forces sum to zero almost for an object in orbit here, only a little bit of fuel is needed to keep it here. But this is not a good place for Webb, because here the Earth and the Sun are on either side of it, and it's gonna be hard. It would be hard to shield it. Okay. However, at L2, we only care about the Moon, the Earth, and the Sun. So as Daryl said, that Sunshield is going to be here, and the instrument package will be on the right side, always blocking what's back here. Even the side of the Moon that's unlit will have some residual infrared energy, which is the heat that the James Webb primarily looks at, more sensitive than any other infrared system ever, and it would see that. So that's what the Sunshield is for. And any direct sunlight falling on the James Webb instruments would destroy them and make them incapable of recording.
Okay, hold on. I have lots of questions. Oh, so many questions.
One thing Manley pointed out in his vid, I guess I was not aware of, or I was under the misapprehension of earlier. There is no active cooling on the Webb, I believe, which other infrared space observatories in the past, like IRAS and Spitzer and stuff, all did, where they have to liquid helium or liquid hydrogen, whatever, to actively cool the sensors and equipment. It's all going to be done by the Sunshield.
Yeah, because they were in orbit. You're right.
Yeah, and it's just, I mean, you got that great big parasol that is screening all the radiation from the Sun, Earth, and Moon. And on one side, you could be, if you're in sunlight, you could be a few hundred degrees above zero. And on the other side of that parasol, it's going to be several hundred degrees below zero.
That's right.
A few degrees above absolute zero.
That's right, and it's going to be a very, well, actually, it's going to be an interesting thing to see what the temperatures actually become, because those infrared sensors are so sensitive that even Jupiter can cause an extreme amount of noise on the sensor as a dot out from the James Webb. Jupiter is not a lot closer at the point that James Webb is at. In fact, it could be a lot farther by 1 million miles if it's on the opposite side of the sun from the Earth at the time. Because remember, at L2, as we're seeing here, at this L2 location, technically a satellite would move slower. So as the Earth goes faster, this one would lag behind if the gravitational forces didn't effectively sum to zero from all the other bodies at this point. But because they do, only a small amount of fuel on board is required to keep this thing at this location out from the Earth. Otherwise, its orbital energy required to keep it in orbit would be less than the Earth's, and it would slow down, and the Earth would beat it, and it would eventually be here and then lag behind, and we'd lap it. And we'd go around once, and it would be back there again. So L2 requires very little fuel to maintain this orbit, and that's why we're doing it this way.
And rather than the coolant for extra cooling, which other space observatories have used, I guess what they have to worry about is conserving that fuel for the expected lifetime of the scope, which I've heard expressed as 6 to 10 years.
Yeah, with that fuel on board, yeah.
Yeah, they'll do everything they can to conserve that fuel, yes. It's interesting to look at. If you look at the L3 point there, that is directly opposite the Earth on the far side of the sun.
Yep.
And I can't think of what old classic science fiction stories it was that...
yeah, I know what it was.
Yeah, you remember that they posited there was a second Earth on
Journey
the far
to the far
side
of the sun. It was called Journey to the Far Side of the Sun. And the guy left the Earth and went to the other Earth, but at the same time, there was the same mission launching from this Earth going to ours, and this guy made it to our Earth, this guy made it to the other Earth, but from the positions of each of the groups on these Earths, they thought that he went out and came back. And they said, "You came back. Why'd you come back?" "I didn't come back." And they figured out that he was the wrong guy. They figured out that there was an equal astronaut at the other end who was waiting to, come back. And when he went up into space, everything was mirrored from the launch vehicle. And so he ended up dying in the end. He ended up crashing into the launch tower at the end when he came back. Yeah. It was a great movie, actually.
Honey, I'm home. Honey, I'm home.
Yeah, that's right. Remember that? Yeah. Everything was reversed from what he knew it. It was like a mirror image. It was so cool.
The L4 and L5 points, are those like the Trojan points in Earth's orbit?
Yeah. Exactly. Yep.
I think they're 60 degrees ahead and behind the Earth in its orbit.
Yeah.
The Trojan folks, if you never heard of them, the famous ones are in Jupiter's orbit, where there are large collections of asteroids that run in the same orbit as the planet Jupiter, but they are 60 degrees ahead and behind the planet. And they tend to hover in that same spot in space.
Yeah.
I swear to God, I thought you were going to go to the Greeks. When I hear Trojan, I think like Trojan horse, right? And I thought when you said, and Trojan goes back to, I swear to God, I thought we were going back to Greece, but no.
This is an image of the unfurled Sunshield, by the way, in the high bay where it was made. If you notice the size of the people down here, this is the length of a tennis court. Okay, it's over 70 feet. That's huge. And this is the James Webb with the mirrors folded. All right. These mirrors are coated in gold. Right, a fine vapor deposition coating of gold. That's because gold reflects infrared energy very efficiently, and gold also is an excellent substance to have for the surface of a mirror out there because it's much less subject to degradation from cosmic rays and other radiation out there that might hit it, gamma rays, etc. However, if it's struck by micrometeorites, it'll still pit and be damaged. But even the ISS has been hit by micrometeorites, and its solar panels are shredded in some places. Little holes with stuff just dangling because of micrometeorite strikes.
Well, yeah, Izabela asked about that. Any near-Earth asteroids or meteors that could be a danger for the Webb.
And we wouldn't know, but she could be right.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know? Well, Daryl,
I didn't think it was going out that far.
I'm sorry, say again.
What do you think?
Keeping my fingers crossed.
Yeah, I know, right? We're keeping our fingers crossed.
Yeah, well, so far so good. As I said earlier, it'll be 29 days until it gets on station, until it gets to the L2 point, and then they've got months of dialing it in and tuning it up to get it working before we get the first images. Yeah. About 6 months away.
Well, if you look in this picture, see this thing right here, this thing sticking up, okay? That's got to fold down, and there's a secondary mirror right here, right? And that is the primary light's going to hit this, and then it's going to go up to that secondary mirror, which at that point will be out here, and then down through this little tiny opening right here, right? And that this is like a baffle to prevent any stray light from coming in, and that's going to go straight back to the instrument package on the back of the telescope. This is actually a Cassegrain system where the light hits the main mirror, goes up, hits a secondary, and then comes down through a hole in the back of the main mirror. So it's actually a Cassegrain system, you know. So this is... Go ahead, Daryl.
Oh, well, Scott Manley shows in his video in the baffle assembly there in the primary mirror, after the infrared light bounces off secondary, there are actually several more reflectors inside that horn on the primary. So it's a Cassegrain, but it's a bunch of reflectors inside there actually. And then to the instrumentation on the back side of it.
Yeah, because the reflectors inside are taking data to a number of these other instruments, including star trackers and things like that allow them to track position and so forth. Hey, Keith. Keith from P&K Space Imaging is here. If you want views of the moon and planets like never before, you go to P&K Space Imaging, guys. Check them out. Check them out.
Now, I have a whole bunch of basic questions, but I don't want to scare your chat away and send them all back to bed.
Why would you do that? They're up now.
I know, but they probably already know, and you've probably already explained this 5,000 times.
Oh, go ahead.
It just threw me. Well, I mean, there's been a lot of delays. You could have been talking about this for years, so yeah, maybe. Okay, you're talking about sunshields from Earth and the Moon. I don't know why. I was under the impression that the honeycomb was like, I don't know. Like, I know they're mirrors, but I was thinking it was almost like going to be like a solar powered thing. I thought it was going to be powered by the sun, and now we're talking about sunshield. So,
the solar panel that's deployed is on the other side of this, facing down. So the solar array will always be in sunlight because it's on the bottom of this. You notice how many layers there are here? Okay, you notice this layer is a different color. This layer is a different color because this is meant to block light and not allow heat transfer to these other layers. And there's several layers because it takes several layers to completely and efficiently block all the infrared energy. You can't just have one layer. And this is as thin as mylar, even thinner actually. So, and if there's one tear, then what can happen is it could just catastrophically rip all the way. So what they've done is they put in rip-stop locations all throughout each layer so that as it deploys, if there is a puncture by a micrometeorite, it won't continue the rip very far before it hits one of these rip-stop gaps. It's like a fire break in a fire. They make these big giant paths so the fire can't jump across. Well, in the same way, they add these stitched extra thick lines, okay? And those stitched extra thick lines will prevent any kind of ripping to catastrophically continue. Hey there, Insert Pi Now. How are you? Welcome to everybody. I know it's early, but
sounds like
we
a
just
Dean
successfully
Winchester fan.
watched the launch of the James Webb. What'd you say?
The solar panels are actually hanging off the very tail end of that Sunshield array. There's like a boom that runs from the front to the back, and the solar panels will actually be hanging off the tail end of it.
Okay.
Oh, about Insert Pi Now, I said he sounds like a Dean Winchester fan, but that's just a joke.
Oh, is that from Supernatural?
It is.
Oh,
It
I knew
is
that.
indeed.
How did I know that? Okay, here's the events. Okay, solar array has been deployed. Okay, and then we have the separation from the launch vehicle. Actually, this happened after the separation from the launch vehicle, so this is wrong. Okay, but then the Sunshield deployment will occur. That's these.
That's
two
what we just
pieces.
saw.
No,
right?
The solar array. Solar array. You saw the solar array deploy.
When it started
that's what that-
opening up, and I think Vera or Izabela said it was the last time we see it. That wasn't the Sunshield deployment?
No, that was the solar array.
Oh.
That was that
Okay.
Square, that square thing sticking out was the solar panel to provide power to the vehicle. The Sunshield is going to block the sun from reaching the sensitive instruments, which are all up here.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Then after the Sunshield deploys, the secondary mirror comes down, and that's this guy right here, as I mentioned before.
But we're not going to see any of this other than like computer animations, right? It's over
correct.
the viewing. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I know it's been a long time in the making, but like they had every opportunity to add some cameras. Like, would that?
Well, I said that to Mark last night. And this, I'm going to invoke Elon Musk again. If this was a SpaceX project, you can bet your bippy that they would have had cameras plastered all over the web to watch every bit of this happen. It's all PR is what it is on SpaceX's point, but people really get off on it.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, no, this is huge. And Keith was just saying, if everything goes perfectly, he really feels this is going to change everything, and a lot of people feel that way. So that's why everyone's been holding their breath for years and years. That's why everyone woke up early on Christmas morning to be here. Like, this is a big deal.
I've said before, I wonder how well people are going to be able to relate to infrared imaging when they get it. It turns out the Webb sees very slightly into the red end of the visible spectrum, but it's mostly at infrared wavelengths, and infrared looks so different. Infrared, it's not visible light, and color doesn't really mean anything in infrared. And what they will do is what they've done in the past with other infrared observatories. They assign colors to certain light frequencies, infrared frequencies of light, to the color sort of the color they use in the imaging takes the place of various temperatures.
Yes.
And I'm just curious to see how those images are going to look. They may look very unearthly. And one other thing that Manley points out in his video, the imaging capabilities of the telescope, they are very far out of date. You're looking at probably 10-year-old technology for the imaging equipment on the Webb, because it's taken so long to get it up there that it will perform well, hopefully. But the size of the imagers Manley talks about, there's like a 4 megapixel imager and a 1 megapixel imager, and I assume they're going to be doing mosaics with it like the Hubble does, because a 4 megapixel or a 1 megapixel image size ain't squat nowadays compared to what modern cameras can do.
Well,
and this is what happens when it takes. Go ahead.
Our camera at SkyTour West is many more megapixels than that anyway. So, but that's true. But it's in orbit, and it's actually going to provide us with unprecedented views. And Keith says it's going to confirm a lot of things, but change a lot of what we think we know. And he's right. I can forgive the fact that there's no onboard cameras. Keep in mind the power budget is huge, and those cameras are going to have a heat signature. If they have power running to them, there's power that has to be shielded so that the heat doesn't get out. But when you get to the camera body, it's going to be kind of tough to shield that. So I think maybe we have to forgive the fact that there's no cameras. I wish there were engineering cameras that could be jettisoned if they had to after the Sunshield successfully opens, so we can see what's wrong.
I should be writing all my questions down.
That's okay. You'll think. You can see this difference here. The Hubble's mirror is about 8 feet in diameter, and it's down here. Okay? This is a 21-foot diameter mirror. And if you notice, the launch vehicle was not 21 feet in diameter. It was only about 8.5 feet or so, with that fairing going a little bit bigger. And these mirrors are folded, and this is folded, and this is folded. So it's a piece of origami in space, in fact. And it's a very, very well done piece of origami. But so that's what we look like there. That's the actual comparison. Here it is in the bay when they were testing everything. There's that non-conductive first layer that doesn't allow the heat to conduct through to the second, third, fourth layers. And these are separated with vacuum between them, so that the only possible way that heat could go from one layer to the next is through radiative transfer, and not through conduction along these stalks. So this is, let's see here.
The last picture is cool.
This one?
Purple. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, here's
that looks like a scene out of a sci-fi movie. That does
Doesn't
not
it?
look real, and yet we just launched it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's
Well,
not
we
real yet.
like we had a lot to do with it, but we witnessed it.
No.
That's something.
We're a human race. We were a part of it.
Yeah.
The instrument package is back here. That's the thing. And that's what the Sunshield's blocking, and that's why this is bright and this is dark, is to show that. Okay? And as I said,
But then
mirrors
the
are
sun will
perfect.
still be passing all around it so it can see what it's looking out at, right?
Correct. It's going to be like you holding your hand up to block the sun. And when you do that, you can see a lot better, but you can feel the heat on your hand.
Nice analogy.
So this is going to heat up too, okay? This is going to heat up too. But it's going to dissipate the heat, all right? Because this first layer is meant to do that, right? And there have to be some radiators on this. as well. And I'm not sure where the radiators are, but I'll find out. And then the multi-layers are to prevent successive layers from getting any warmth. So the first layer is going to get warm, the second layer is going to get some warmth, the third a lot less, and the fourth a lot less. So it's going to make it so that you know, the 5-layer sandwich here is not going to allow at the last layer any radiation of heat upwards, because that
How long
would
can
be
that hold out
something-
for, though?
Oh, it unless micrometeorites go plunging through the entire array, it could be it's a passive system, so it'll reflect forever and ever. It's made of material that doesn't break down in the nature of the environment, and the gold mirrors will withstand cosmic and gamma ray bombardment, because it's going to get a lot of that. There's the aperture I was telling you about.
But how do they know? Like, I mean, first off, like, we have to talk about, like, how they figured out the Lagrange points to begin with, because that is just genius. Like, how would you know? How would you know if you go to this exact location in space, everything's going to align and it's just going to hover there?
That's just orbital mechanics. They figured that out a long time ago.
I know, but it's not like something someone just stumbles across one day, or, hey, I wonder if, like, that's a huge thought leap, you know, like, no?
Not really from a mechanics point of view. I mean, as an astronomer, you would say, you would actually ask, I asked the question myself as a kid. I wonder if there's any places in space where the gravity sums to 0 effectively. I mean, that's how I asked the question. That's not technically what it is, but it's the way to think about it. And
why? Because planets and moons kind of hover? Not hover, but...
No, they're in orbit. They have an orbit, okay? But
yeah.
If you have an object in orbit, the orbit can decay. The orbit can change, and gravitational effects on an object can change the orbital characteristics of the object. When you have big planets and moons, not much can change those. But little satellites could be subject to change. They could tumble and be altered in their orbits. So you need fuel to keep that stuff, to keep them aligned. And the Lagrange points are like a parking spot where you don't have to worry about the gravity so much of all the other planets and moons. You just have to worry about keeping yourself in an oriented location. So that's why the little elliptical path it's going to take as it's in that position. And, you know, thinking about a parking spot in space is something that was rather elementary in the beginning, because they saw ahead to when we might want to put, and back then it was a space station at a Lagrange point, you know, because then it would require minimal upkeep to keep it safely in orbit. So,
where's the ISS? Is that at L1?
No, that's in Earth orbit.
No,
that's just going,
that's
and it has to be boosted to stay in Earth orbit every now and then, or it'd be coming back into the Earth's atmosphere and burn up. Because it does get enough atmospheric molecules striking it to slow it down enough over time.
Yeah.
Excuse me for a moment, please.
Yes, sir.
Oh, he's leaving at a bad time, because I didn't mean to cut him off, but I think he had said earlier that you know, he hopes that it has enough fuel once it gets there. But when I think parking spot, you know, I just kind of think gravity's going to take over, that it doesn't actually need the fuel to kind of hover or kind of balance. Like, am I looking at this wrong, or?
No,
probably,
you're almost there. You're almost there. I mean, when it's out there, it's only going to need about 150 kilograms of fuel to keep it in orbit for 10 years, to keep it safely in orbit for 10 years. It needs the ability to orient itself. All right, and that's what the fuel is going to help do, and it's also going to help keep it in that orbit with minor corrections over time. Now, it would need so much more fuel if it didn't have, if it had the gravity of the other worlds to worry about. So, at this point,
so what happens when it runs out of fuel?
Well, then it can't maintain its pointing array. It has something on it called reaction wheels. These are spinning disks, and there should be 4 of them, and it can operate like on 3. One is redundant, if I recall, and they spin at a certain rate when needed. They're not always spinning, but maybe they are actually to maintain one gyroscopically stable look angle. But if you spin one differently, it induces a force on the overall vehicle called a torque, and it will spin the vehicle a little bit. And this is how you can angle it to make fine corrections. Now, you've seen that torque in operation, but you don't know it as such. If you take a rope and you hang a bicycle wheel on it and you spin that bicycle wheel faster and faster, that wheel won't just spin horizontally, it'll start going vertical. And now you'll be up here, and then it's going to go like this. It's going to start going in a circle like this vertically around your rope that it's hanging from. Okay? That's because of a force called a torque that is enacted on the system, on that circular wheel spinning. And so you can imagine that a series of those spinning wheels angled at certain directions to each other, working together, could orient a big object over time. All right, and that's what the James Webb has on it. Those are again called the reaction wheels. And the reaction wheels, I actually took pictures of reaction wheels on the Google Earth satellite when I was in the high bay with that. And I probably have them here somewhere. But anyway, those wheels are the thing that are going to help with some of the fine tuning. But for the big movements, they're going to use fuel and thrust the little the entire array around. But it's all going to be done very slowly, even though the Webb has been subjected to some incredibly fierce bouncing in the launch vehicle simulation system that they put in there. So,
per Amanda's question earlier, Lagrange points were figured out in 1772, Amanda.
Nice.
Here you go.
That's 1770. That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy.
Yeah. Well, we didn't have satellites back then, but we did have people that knew celestial mechanics.
I guess so, eh? Holy cow.
Yeah.
But okay,
think about it, they were all thought out by longhand mathematics. No computers.
Yeah.
They didn't even have slide rules back then, I don't think.
I don't think.
Well, that's what I mean. That's just watching over time and comparing notes and stuff. Like, that is patience and dedication, and like, you have to be, awe-inspired and passionate about this to dedicate that, like, to watch constellations move across the sky over the year. To watch the positions of the moon over a 28-day period. Like, I don't know. A lot of it still, a lot of basic things still blow my mind because, like, when everyone views it one way and then one person just has this little paradigm shift and it changes the whole world, like, that we circle the sun, that the earth is not flat. Like, everyone just assumed forever that this is how it was, and it's not, and it's huge, and it's like it changes everything, like.
Yeah, it does. It does.
But okay, so in 10 years' time, hopefully 10 plus, when it's totally out of fuel, what happens? Does it fall back to Earth? Does it float off into space? Does it? What happens?
It might end up starting to lag in its orbit if we can't keep it on that little trajectory that it needs to stay at L2. Maybe. The other thing is it might not be able to point accurately at objects. However, I mentioned this earlier. They are working on, and I watched an example of a robotic system designed to refuel satellites like the Webb, but from a long distance away. It was done in a laboratory, but it was a refueling port that was originally designed to be handled by a human. Okay, so it had a certain thing you twist and unscrew and pull out and put in the fuel hose, kind of a thing, basically. However, they developed a robot to do that, and it was successfully tested. So I have a feeling that in 10 years, we could launch a refueling mission to the James Webb.
Oh.
And refuel
Well, that was
it.
the whole thing. If something happened, it's not like you could just send a technician out there, but
Right.
now they're making plans for future trips. That's very cool.
That's right.
Yeah, that's what Headband's saying. NASA said they might start making robots to refuel.
Yep.
So, but okay, even if they couldn't, okay, if there's such a lack of cameras on there right now, they're just going like through computers to kind of track it, right? Like, if it runs out of fuel, is it like, will we still be able to track it, or do you think we'll have a new technology built by then that we can add a camera, or?
It's sending telemetry back to the Earth every step of the way. The vehicle, now that it's powered by its solar panel, now has the power to boot up its computer and to actually be part of the conversation now. And now NASA and the the management arm of this, probably at the ESA, is going to be able to send messages to the telescope and find out diagnostic information. How's your mirrors doing? Did they unfold properly? How's the cooling? What's the temperature of this instrument? Is the mid-infrared instrument imager working fine? Okay, what's working? Because there's several instruments on board, and so they'll be able to get telemetry from this system and get it back to controllers, so they'll know what they're looking at and what they're getting at all times. And they certainly have readouts on how much fuel is left and if there's a leak or whatever. So they'll
So
have
it'll
all that
have
information.
power forever, even if it runs out of fuel. So it's solar powered?
Correct. That's correct. And that means that those reaction wheels will always work until they don't. Someday they will reach their maximum number of spins. Okay, the Kepler Space Telescope did that. It had 4 reaction wheels. It could run on 3, and it lost 2. So engineers use the cleverness of the solar wind, which strikes the Kepler and causes an induced moment, what we call it, a movement, of the space telescope, and they recalibrated the 2 remaining wheels to react in concert with the impact force of the solar wind. And this allowed them to effectively have a 3rd rotating wheel, but it was only simulated by the solar wind striking the vehicle. And then the other 2 wheels, being recalibrated, could now steer the Kepler again. And we got years more life out of Kepler because of that engineering cleverness. And that became what's called the K2 mission, the Kepler 2. And we found many, 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 many more exoplanets because of that. And if you think about it, the Kepler system is dwarfed by this mirror you're seeing right here. Okay, absolutely dwarfed. Yeah, and yes, this one's infrared, but infrared is what you want when you're looking for planets. And infrared is what you need when you're trying to see what's in their atmospheres. You can't do that really visually. So this is a very interesting telescope. It's on its way to L2. So it was a successful launch, and the mission is now officially underway. So there
the reaction wheels, that's just a fancy way of saying flywheels, inertial guidance system, I guess.
Yeah. But a lot more involved, obviously, than just flywheels, of course, as you can imagine, and probably have. So it's they can actually obviously change their rate of spin in concert with the energy budget that the solar panels provide. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure, I don't know if you said it and I missed it. Okay, so even if it runs out of fuel and we can't like do the 5 movements, or it starts to lag in orbit or whatever, as long as it has power, we can keep in communication with it. So will we still be able to take images just randomly, not something specific? We just get what we get. We can keep going, right? Like,
yeah. Well,
what would stop it?
As Daryl mentioned before, there's no active cooling that's required.
Yeah.
And even though it's a closed system, I don't know what the degradation is of an active cooling system. So I'm not an engineer of that kind of equipment. But I do know that if you just have electrical power and you can talk to the telescope, you could effectively just take random images of deep space. But the problem is it's going to take time exposures. And to take time exposures, you have to hold on station. And it could be, if we have electrical power properly to the vehicle, we'll be able to use the reaction wheels to keep on an object long enough to take these images. I think the thrusters are for moving it from object to object primarily, and for helping it maintain the L2 position and make any corrections needed for that. But the reaction wheels are real fine tuners. So I think we could probably do random photographs as long as we have power.
Yeah.
But
yeah, so
who
like
knows?
That's what I mean. Like once it's out of fuel, it's not necessarily over.
I'd have to look into that. I would guess no. I would guess that it wouldn't be.
Like I said, not maybe you couldn't like go to a specific location or something, but I mean, as long as it can still, if we can track it and communicate with it and get pictures back from it, I don't know. I mean, it's just doesn't seem like a total loss. You know, it's not like
Correct.
It's all over in 10 years. Say goodnight, you know?
Its expected lifetime is 6 to 10 years. And that's with budgeting the fuel. Scott Manley talks about this in his video. If I remember correctly, and I could be wrong, but the gross pointing of the telescope is done with the thrusters. And
Yes.
then the reaction wheels will be used for keeping it on station wherever it's pointing.
Yep. That's
DK wants... Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Go ahead.
No, go ahead,
Go ahead,
sorry.
Amanda.
Okay, DK wants to know from you guys, what are, I mean, because James Webb is now a thing of the past, what other missions are there in the near future?
In terms
That's a
of
big
this
question.
type of mission, there's really none. There are there's things on the docket that haven't actually been built yet. For instance, the Europa Clipper, a mission to the Jupiter's moon Europa to detect where we can put a lander someday that can land on Europa. And that is something that will probably happen in the next 10 years. But it's going to take several years to get out there. You know, it took 15 years to get to Pluto with New Horizons. I mean, that's a long trip, you know. So as far as other missions, you got to keep in mind too, the space station ISS, it's approaching its lifetime, and what that means is that they actually have to add fuel to keep it in orbit. But there's other factors which go into how long a module can survive for, and it's gonna also reach. I mean, the Zarya, the Russian space component, has had multiple failures that have gone on technically within the unit, and we've had in the U.S. segment have had some errors, and Japanese segment has had errors that have cropped up over time. But this is, again, as Daryl alluded to earlier, this is old technology that was around way back when the ISS went into orbit. So it's got to be tried, true, and tested in order to make it to orbit. That usually means many years of operation and testing. So I think that, I think that's probably the reason why we always have older technology in orbit.
Where is New Horizons now?
Oh, it's well out in the Kuiper Belt now.
Do we still hear from it?
I imagine we do. I just haven't seen anything lately on it.
They're still headed for another object, aren't they?
And there's another Kuiper Belt object, yeah. They went by Ultima Thule, which is those double pancakes, contact binary.
The snowman?
Yes, the snowman.
Yeah.
They
or like flat discs together, like two of those.
Don't they call that? They gave it another name, Ultima Thule.
Contact binary.
Aerocos or something, I think they call it now.
Oh yeah. But it was a contact binary. So think of it this way. Yeah, it may have been two objects orbiting each other, but through degradation of their orbits, they spiraled closer until they touched each other. And when they hit each other, where they struck, a small amount of heat is generated because it's taken that kinetic energy of motion and suddenly gets converted to heat, okay, when they strike. And that melts some of the ices, which, of course, immediately cools the ice again, and now they're locked together. And now you have these two spinning objects that will spin together for eternity unless they're struck by a third. So really kind of interesting, I remember that, Daryl. I don't remember the name, though.
Yeah, Aerocos, I think. Arrokoth, I believe. Mm-hmm. As far as the ISS goes, it does have a limited lifetime. They're approaching the end of it.
Yep.
I saw a good video somewhere the other day that they are looking ahead. And again, it's not just Elon Musk. I mean, there's lots of companies out there, but future space stations they're looking at past the International Space Station, they're all private.
Yeah.
Except for the Chinese, of course. I mean, lots of people have plans in the works for space stations, and they think space tourism is going to be a big thing. I wonder at that, but the other thing was keeping the ISS on station in orbit. It has small thrusters, and they can use it enough, like when the Russians shot that anti-satellite weapon a while back. They have enough power they could actually move the space station by degrees to try to avoid where they think there may be an object that could hit the station. But if you go back to a Star Trek moment, there were episodes where the Enterprise was orbiting some planet and they only have hours before they fall into the atmosphere and stuff. Things don't work like that, really. They have longer times, but a lot of that depends on the orbit that the object is in. I saw this somewhere the other day. If you're in a low Earth orbit, the orbit will degrade, but it's going to take some time. But if you're in a high orbit, like geosynchronous orbits, those things could be up there for thousands to hundreds of thousands of years.
Yeah, those orbits aren't going to degrade. Not unless there's a catastrophic collision with another object, but it would have to be from a different orbit that crosses that orbit for whatever reason. So a whole series of disasters would have to happen to cause that to happen. But we could end up seeing a geosynchronous object get kicked back into a lower orbit by some strange accident or combination of accidents. But hey, I think that's pretty cool. Well, I think... yeah, go ahead.
We have a few more questions from chat. A few little quick-fire ones, because these three all kind of link together. Rudy and Headband must have been on the same wavelength. Okay,
Rudy.
First Rudy wants... What?
Yeah, okay, Rudy. I know who he is, yeah.
Yeah, I believe he's
Rudy.
in Germany. I can't remember, though. Guten Tag. Yeah. I'm not sure how to say Happy Christmas in German, sorry. It's been a long time. Okay, Rudy, first he wants to know, can we see this James Webb with any of our equipment here on Earth? And I'm going to add, if so, for how long?
I would guess that the sunshade would be very reflective from the bottom side, which is what we'd see, but I don't know. I don't know where it's going to be placed.
Even the flare once in a while, no?
I'm not sure. It depends. If it's in the plane of the Earth orbit, then it's possible. But because we see satellites that are 17th and 18th magnitude in the geosynchronous position. So our cameras can pick up geosynchronous satellites, which are extremely faint. This is only going to be, quite a bit further out than 22,000 miles. It's going to be 1 million. So unless the sunshade really glints at us, I don't know that we would actually be able to see it. But I could find out. I don't know what the magnitude is going to be. It's a 75-foot long object, but not 75-foot diameter. It's a diamond shape as seen from Earth. Hello, Maria Duff. Welcome.
Hi, Maria. Happy Christmas. Okay, so after that, Headband wants to know if Hubble could see the James Webb.
I imagine it maybe if it did a long time exposure, and it might see them. We're probably going to see this. We're probably going to see that kind of photo being taken.
That'd be pretty cool. Yeah.
I just don't know what magnitude it's going to be.
Okay,
know,
and then
Rudy's asking 18th magnitude. I don't know. It could be like 23rd magnitude or more out there. I'm not sure. It depends. It depends on what its actual brightness is when fully lit by the sun. So I'm not sure, Rudy, but that's a really good question. I'd love to try and look for it.
Well, hold on, because then Rudy asks. I paused. Well, I paused my chat from scrolling because I wanted to keep all these questions together. Okay,
good,
so then Rudy asks if the Hubble. Oh wait, no, it's the same question. If the Hubble can see it, never mind.
Yeah.
I thought he was asking if we could see the Hubble with our equipment from here.
We can.
We can. Okay.
Yeah, we could.
Okay, sorry, I read it wrong. No, Headband and Rudy had the same question at the end. I misread it. Yeah. That's my fault. It's early. It's early, guys.
So
if you go to Evans,
are the only equipment we need to see Hubble. Go ahead, Derek.
We can see Hubble naked eye?
Yes.
Yes. It may not be impressive, but if you go to Heavens Above or one of the other sites, they keep tabs on Hubble. You can look up when passes are going to happen, whether you can see them or not.
They keep it that updated that
they do.
They'll tell you if they're that is cool. How you know what? Hold on. Let me get the link for you guys. Heavens Above. It's .org, yes?
Heavens-above.
It came up for me.
There you
go. Just double check that. See, I don't know how to default it because it's coming up as Sydney. So you'll see my sky. You have to put in your own location. Yeah, hold on. I'm going to try to take that out. It's .com, by the way. It's okay. It's still saying Sydney, Nova Scotia. So guys, just change that to your own location, and you will see your information.
Yeah.
Heavens-above.com. It's in the chat. It's very cool. It's a very cool website. These guys know where all the best websites are.
Let's see. If you look at heavens-above.com, read down on the left side under satellites, and Hubble Space Telescope is listed.
And DK, oh, sorry, go ahead.
It will give you, trying to pull it up here. It's not bright, but it is visible. Yeah, I'm looking at Heavens Above from my location in Colorado, and there's a pass tonight, and there's a pass tomorrow night, both after about 5:30 in the evening. Tells you when and where to look, and if you go to Heavens Above, up at the top right, under location, you'll have to jump through some minor hoops there to plug in your location. But once you do that, save it to your favorites, and it'll always take you back to your location, wherever you may be. Give it a name, call it home, or my house, or whatever, and you can access all these points in Heavens Above. It'll show you Hubble. It'll show you all major satellites, the ISS. This is where I go to get my ISS passes information, and it'll also tell you when Starlink passes. If you want to see the Starlink trains, where you'll see 40 or 50 of them in a row, just hit Starlink passes for all objects from launch.
I know our friend Bill used to specifically look for those trains. I know Mark gets them all the time, and he doesn't want them, so...
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
I actually want to... Oh, go ahead, Daryl.
No, go ahead.
I had a friend of mine from Tennessee send me photographs saying, "What the heck is this?" And it was a Starlink train that he took images of, and I sent him pictures taken by several other people in Tennessee that sent them to me. And I sent him those and said, "Starlink trains, see?" Oh, man, that's cool. Let me just go through
in a way, they're
timeline.
kind of fun to see, because you can follow them through your shots. You can see the dashy lines. Unfortunately, they're ruining your shots, so... what I think is kind of a fun little novelty, you think is, damn it,
We deal with it, yeah. Well, since we're still in the James Webb, I just wanted to run through this with you guys. Okay, this is the timeline of events, okay? So after launch, in the first hour, we have the ride to space, the solar array deployment, and then the free flight, right, to Lagrange 2 after the orbital correction. But during this first day, there will be this mid-course correction to L2, and it's already been done. It's already, ready to go. It's already on its way. It's on its trajectory, okay, and it will also use the small rocket thrusters on the Webb itself in order to make that correction. So even though it's detached from that second stage that you saw with the solar panel out, those little jets on the Webb are still going to be used in order to make the trajectory correction to L2. Okay, that's happening sometime today. Now, in the first week here, as we move through the week, will be the Sunshield deployment. Then that'll happen after the second trajectory maneuver is accomplished by the Webb itself. All right, and it's going to bring the fore and aft shield, trays basically, and then those open up to the full Sunshield. So the first tray has to deploy, then the second, and then the rest of the Sunshield deploys around that. That happens in the first week here. All right, now in the first month, that's where the telescope deployment, the cool down, because now that the Sunshield's in place, the instruments have to cool down before you can even consider turning those on. And once the telescope secondary is deployed, the telescope has to get the temperature. Then and only then can the instruments turn on and go through a check phase. And then after that, it will go into the final orbit to L2, right? And then in the second, third, and fourth months, that's when all the optics are going to be checked out during that phase, and the telescope alignment takes place. If you think about it, with SkyTour LiveStream, what do we have to do? We had to align the telescope. So we had to point it at known objects and say, okay, the coordinates of the star are right here. Put those coordinates into the telescope. Move to another star. Coordinates of the star, what are they? Does the telescope agree? If so, you're good. If not, recorrect. And that's what the Webb is going to go through. It has to align itself with the heavens so that when you tell it to go to a certain set of coordinates, the thing you're looking at is going to be right there. Okay, and it has to be very accurate. And so the alignment takes place in that second, third, and fourth month. Okay, so there is a sensor called the fine guidance sensor on board, which is going to be used to help acquire and lock targets, and then that'll be something that will help us keep the Webb aligned as a human race. Okay. Now in the 5th and 6th months, we have calibration and then completion of the commissioning. And they're going to calibrate all these instruments. Now I have a spectroscope behind me that I'm going to use on the telescope that's behind me that you can't see. And that spectroscope needs to be calibrated. So you can't just point it and get data and say, okay, what is it? It's fine, right? No, you actually have to know what all those peaks and valleys mean, and if they're aligned, they have to be aligned on an axis that gives you valid data. So you see a peak, but what's that peak? What's the wavelength? Well, you don't know until you calibrate the instrument. And so the calibration phase is going to take time, okay? And then after that's done, then we're going to be in a phase of what's called early release observations, where we're going to actually see, right after this whole commissioning phase, we're going to see some actual shots taken by this beautiful monster in the image. All right. And then after 6 months and after all the calibrations and the early commissioning photos, or the early release observations, then we go into science operations, yeehaw, and then it's off and running, So there it is. That's the order of events for the Webb Space Telescope. So if you have any questions,
Ta-da.
let me know. Ta-da. Other than that, I think we're actually...
I was trying to explain to Rudy. He was asking if there was cameras. He came in a little late, and I said, it was one of the things we were talking about, our disappointment with the lack of cameras. He said he thought it showed how it unfolds, and I said it was just like computer animation. And I can't explain what we saw with the solar array kind of unfolding, or can someone that knows what they're talking about please explain what we saw, because he can go back in this stream.
That was a camera that was mounted to the second stage of the Ariane rocket after it released the Webb. The Webb had coasted a little bit in front of the second stage, and the camera was looking at the Webb, and it showed the solar array deploying.
As it was
deploying. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. Not unfolding, deploying. Yes. Thank you.
And that was like the Vicky 1 cam or something it's called on the Ariane. I mean, the booster has cameras, and the booster does not return and land. It's destroyed when it re-enters Earth's atmosphere. Or it stays in a highly elliptical orbit and becomes space junk. Something else to get in our way. It's SkyTour West. But anyway, I think we're good. I think we
Yeah,
covered
I know there
everything.
was.
The coverage is
one
over
question.
for now.
Yeah, okay,
Go ahead.
but you are going to leave this up, right? Like, it's been, I don't know, the stream's probably been about 2 hours, so it's going to take a little while for it to fully upload, but you're not going to pull this video or make it private or... Because
No, it's just
NASA,
gonna
I
stay
think,
there.
you can use
It's
NASA
not
content if
monetized.
it's for educational purposes, I
Yep.
believe.
Yeah, I didn't monetize it, so I'm not making money on NASA's back, so we're fine.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
can
it's an
leave it up.
informational kind of thing for sure.
Yep.
You know, so once it's fully uploaded, you can go back. But yeah, about, you know, I think it was 27 minutes in after the launch, and there's a countdown to the launch. So about 27 minutes in, you'll see what we're talking about. It was pretty cool. Someone pointed out that it's our last kind of live shot of the telescope. But 29 days from now, it should be situated and hopefully... no, the pictures are going to take about 6 months to come back. But it should be situated in about 29
it's
days.
6 months
yes?
until it starts taking images that we
Oh.
see. I went through the whole, I went through the entire chronology of what it has to do. Okay.
I know, I'm sorry.
In the first month, second and third months, fifth and sixth months. A lot to do, you know. But then it's going to start taking early release images after all that. And then it's going to go into science mode where the people that have vied aggressively for time on the James Webb get their time and objects to study. And then they have to plan which way they go because they don't want to swing all the way to one side, then all the way back to another side, you know. And it depends where it is in the Earth's orbit. You know, if the object you want to see is currently in the direction of the sun, well, guess what? You're going to have to wait 6 months for the telescope to be around the other side to be able to look out at that object because of the Sunshield. You don't want any sunlight hitting this. So this is a long-term mission.
Yeah.
You know?
I bet you dollars to donuts they already have a schedule written out months or years in advance.
Oh, they do.
Yeah,
There's
I
plenty of
don't doubt
people
it.
already on the list. You can look up the list. You know, hey, David Schmidt. Yeah.
Hi,
You can look up
David.
the list.
I got your Christmas card. Thank you. Yours is on its way, but as always, I'm late.
Whoa, David.
Beautiful,
I got Amanda's
beautiful
too.
Christmas card from Thailand. Our friend David is a teacher out in Thailand, and it's very thoughtful.
Yep.
He's been sending them for the last few years. And now this question's a little off topic, but I'm going to throw in a shameless plug, so please forgive me before we wrap. DK wanted to know if you guys saw a photo of what looks like a spoon on Mars. 'Cause Mark is also the chief video and photo analyst for MUFON. You know, if DK, if you want to send that picture to us at SkyTour LiveStream on Facebook or to me or Mark on Skype or something, send us a picture of that and check out KGRA here on YouTube every Thursday night at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Eastern, 7 for me, sorry, 6 p.m. Eastern for MUFON What's Up. And I'm sure
right.
they would investigate something like that. Mark, if you've seen it, maybe you can shed some light on what it was.
I
Doubting it
haven't
was a
seen
spoon.
it yet, and I'm looking forward to seeing it. So you can
Okay,
send
send
to
it our
me.
way, DK. So
Yeah.
for
You can
MUFON
go to
stuff,
my Facebook site.
Thursday.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Thursday at
yeah,
6 Eastern.
6 Eastern Thursdays here on YouTube, KGRA. And for more content like this, stick with KGRA, but Sundays at 6 Eastern. And you can hear the three of us as well as Tara, who was in earlier, Tara Diulis.
Yeah.
And we talk all sorts of astronomy things. And we're off for the next
That's
little
on-
bit for the holidays, but SkyTour Radio on KGRA. Please join us there.
That's right. SkyTour Radio.
Shameless,
SkyTour
I know,
LiveStream West
piggybacking
right
off your
now.
stream.
SkyTour LiveStream West right now is on hold for the holidays. And after the holidays, we're going to resume. So we'll be fine there. And other than that, I want to thank you guys for coming out and joining us today to watch the successful launch of the James Webb. There you can see the 1, 2, 3, 4 main layers of that sail blockage, the parasol, as Daryl called it, the Sunshield. And so this is what's going to keep those instruments from heating up. And so we'll talk to you another time. I want to thank you guys for coming out. I really enjoyed having you with us. And so, Daryl, is there anything you want to say on closing?
Merry Christmas, everybody.
That's what I was thinking. Merry Christmas, everybody. How about you, Amanda?
Happy Christmas. Happy Christmas from Canada.
That's right. From Nova Scotia.
From Nova Scotia, where it is bitterly cold.
Oh, same here. All right, guys. We're out of here. Thank you for joining us. We will talk to you again soon. Keep an eye out for SkyTour LiveStream West, and we'll be talking to you. Good night, everybody, and good day to the rest of you.
Merry Christmas.
Happy Christmas.
Ho, ho, ho.
Hody, 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 ho. See you, everybody.